good year, by the way. I was alive. I was kicking as a kid back then. But Bob and his lovely wife have 5 children, 2 grandchildren, and he's been a past president for Jericho Road, Pasadena, president at the PAUSD Board of Education, and the Pasadena Educational Foundation. Also the past chair for the Pasadena Child Health Foundation. Let's just say this man is a known man in Pasadena, right? He served many other boards with numerous booster clubs and parent organizations, so he knows kids. He knows people and he knows parents, right? So Bob holds a certificate in his workplace for meditation and has provided meeting facilities and meditation services for many organizations in this great community of Pasadena. And without further ado, I just want to welcome Bob Harrison, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good to be here, everybody. So Mark Twain grew up in a small town in the Midwest. And after graduating from high school, he set out to the big town of St. Louis. And after being there for a month, he wrote back home of his experience. And he said, "This town is an evil place. On every corner there is drinking, gambling, and women of ill repute. This is no place for a Presbyterian." He said, and then added, "Therefore, effective immediately, I am no longer a Presbyterian." I use this quote because it resembles what being in business is like. Our restaurant has been in business for over 40 years. In fact, tomorrow is our 43rd anniversary.
Wow.
And throughout those years, we've had to adapt and change, flow with the times, react to changing dining habits, demographics, and more. For example, 40 years ago, we did not have kale or quinoa on our menu. So when people ask how you've stayed in business this long, the simple answer is that we have been able to maintain our brand while changing to stay relevant and meet the needs of our guests. As I said, Green Street was started 43 years ago as a family business. My wife Lisa and I, her brother and his wife, her sister and her husband were the owners for the first 40 years. A couple of years ago, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law retired, and so we decided to bring on into the ownership my daughter and my niece, who were already managers in the place. And we started as an 18-table restaurant on East Green Street, and in 1983 moved to our present location that seats about 200 people, with a large patio, full bar, catering services, and online sales. We've had other ventures throughout the years, some with varying success, but we've really tried to maximize our sales within our one place, kind of a 4 walls within those 4 walls. And we'll do everything we can to build sales within that. Although, as I mentioned, we've changed through the years, we've not had a change in our own values that we hold, and our signature menu items, which is the Diane salad, which we sell individually or in large bowls for meetings and parties. It's an Asian chicken salad with rather addicting dressing, and our zucchini bread, which accompanies many of our items, and we also sell it by the loaf in restaurants and online and in a few of the neighborhood markets. Our partnership has always worked on the premise that each partner brings some talents to the business, and we should make use of those talents. So work in those areas where your talents can thrive. And we believe there are 3 ingredients to running a successful business that apply certainly to restaurants, but maybe in your businesses as well. Number 1, utilizing solid business practices. Basically, the key is spending less than what you bring in. And to do this, you must be able to control costs.
Yeah.
So we manage the numbers. We use data to make good business decisions. One of my partners is the number guy. That's what he does. And because he's not a people person, you don't want him in the restaurant. You want him in the back. We learned that a long time ago. Also, having effective systems. Restaurants have a lot of moving parts, and you need solid systems in place so that we can run the place smoothly. Ordering systems, training systems, cleaning systems. My daughter and niece are now running the day in and day out business, and they're usually utilizing some of our proven systems, but now also implementing new ones or improving the old ones. We found that through COVID, we've spent so much time just trying to adapt to the constant changing conditions that we've neglected some of our systems, and we're just looking at them now and going back and trying to reestablish those and re-implementing or beginning some new ones. Thirdly, a strong culture, positive culture. We've always had a culture of hospitality where we treat everyone, guests, staff, and vendors with respect and dignity. Before COVID, we had about 90 staff members. We're down to about 50 right now. I've always been kind of the culture guy. I have to ensure that we're actually performing in the way that we say we are. So my goal has always been that when a staff member decides to leave their employment, that they leave on good terms. Doesn't always work that way, but it's our responsibility to give each staff member the opportunity to thrive. Obviously, sometimes our role changes and we have to become job counselors. In other words, we let people know maybe they're not a great fit for the restaurant business or certainly at Green Street. But, so in other words, we've terminated them. But we never fire somebody without first sharing what our expectations are, and then those that aren't meeting those expectations, giving them an opportunity to improve, and then we retrain or do whatever we need to do to give them that opportunity. There were times when I'm the bad guy where the staff members have made some bad choices, but I always like to remember the time when I'm walking across the street in front of the restaurant, and here comes this car barreling down the avenue. I can see it's full of young people, and the woman driver is honking the horn at me as I jump off onto the sidewalk. And as she drives by, she says, "I just bought this." Excuse me. "I just bought this car from money I made at Green Street."
Oh, that's beautiful.
Or when a longtime server, a single mom, I don't know why these get to me, but he told me as she was gathering her stuff at the end of a shift, "Well, I'm stopping off at the bank on my way home. I'm making the final mortgage payment on a loan she took out 15 years earlier to buy a condo."
Beautiful.
So it's because of working with our staff has been such a big part of my role. I completed a mediation course and became a certificated workplace mediator about 15 years ago. Before the course, if conflict arose between a couple of employees or between a manager and a staff member, I would have to get involved and I would just solve the problem kind of like a parent. "Okay, you go over there and you do this and don't say that. You go over here and you do that. Don't say this," you know. And sometimes it worked, but usually it never really got to the bottom issue, and so it didn't last long. Now, because of the mediation, I now bring people together and I guide the conversation and let them talk. And then they come up with solutions. And you know, you always believe your own data, so once it's their solution that works, they put that into place, and it has long-ranging effects.
Ain't that the case?
Yeah. I'll give you a good example. One day I came into the restaurant, it was a busy Sunday, and I was there just to kind of help out. And when I walked in, I first checked my box in our little office, and there's a note, and it looks like it's been written, you know, just an angry note, all caps, and it says, "This is my 2 weeks notice, I'm out of here. Signed, Trevor." I thought, well, this is kind of odd, you know, and so Trevor was working that day, and so between times of running food and doing these things, I had a little short conversation. I said, "Trevor, what's going on?" And he started explaining things. He was really frustrated, particularly with a manager that did his scheduling, didn't like the way it was this, and blah, blah, blah. And so I listened, and I said, okay, Trevor, I said, tell you what, I said, you want to invest 1 hour? I said, you and I and the manager that you're having the issues with will sit down. You guys will talk, I'll guide the conversation. And I said, at the end of that hour, then you can make a decision. You want to leave? You want to give your notice? Of course, that's up to you. But at least you lived. We've given you an opportunity. And but if you don't want to, we'll tear the note up and you continue your employment. He says, okay. So we set up a time, and he and the manager, we went off into a small, up in my little office, up in the dumpy place that you remember. We had a conference table, and we sat in there, and I laid out kind of the process that we would go through, and they started talking. And it was amazing the kinds of things that came out. Things that he was feeling that he wasn't getting the respect because of the way the schedule was being done. The manager had no idea. But then he also listened to the manager and realized, oh, she had some pressures on her on some of these things and schedulings and all the different wants and needs and stuff. And so he kind of understood. And at the end, they came up with some things on the way they would go, and Trevor decided to tear up the note. And he worked another 6 years before he decided to move on to a different field. And that wouldn't have happened without the mediation type of things and having a real conversation. So some of our other keys to our business is following the recipe. One of the most important keys to our success is the consistency of our product. I hear it all the time. Somebody moved away 10 years ago, and they come back to the restaurant craving an item, and they order it, enjoy it, and they say, wow, it tastes just the way I remembered it. So we've got great cooks that some of them have been with us for over 20 years. But the key is they follow the recipe so that it doesn't matter who's making the item, it's made the same way, and you'll get it the same way every time. I remember one time, my wife Lisa used to do all the baking, the zucchini bread, the cookies, the desserts. We started having these kids, and she couldn't be there as often. So we trained other people to do the work, and the chocolate chip cookies just weren't coming up the way that Lisa made. I mean, Lisa, what do you think he's doing? I don't know. I gave him the recipe. It's all right there. So we'll come in and just watch him and see what he's doing, because there's got to be something. She came in and watched, and one thing we've done is the recipe called for butter, of course, to be in the batter. But the butter was supposed to be set out and be room temperature before you put it in and mix it up. And just because he pulled it out and he's trying to move along and do it, he pulled it out of the refrigerator, put it in, and started cooking, so it was hard butter. And just that, I guess the chemistry of it or so, made the taste different, and it wasn't as good. So it was just that one little thing that affected the outcome, and by changing that, we had Lisa's cookies again, not made by Lisa. But it applies to the people in the front of the house as well. The hosts, servers, and bussers that we're always talking, you gotta follow the recipe. Our recipe calls for each guest to come into contact with a genuinely friendly staff member who's always looking for a way to improve your visit. Our mission, we say, is to guarantee another visit, because our business has been built on word-of-mouth marketing, repeat business, people that had such a good experience that when they leave, they come back, but they also recommend us to somebody else. And so our recipe is providing genuine neighborhood hospitality. By the way, we tell our staff that great hospitality happens when you treat a guest like they're in their own home, even when you wish they were. So the other part I would share is I think that has been important, and you probably all do this as well, is you have to work on the business, not just in the business. And you could spend all your time working in the business, and it probably helps your payroll, and you feel like you're being productive. But overall business needs attending to as well. You need some time to spend looking at the future, looking at your systems, looking at your people, with the goal of constant improvement. Because businesses that don't improve don't last. And that's why important, I think, groups like this where you're coming together and learning about each other's businesses and things. When I meet people and I tell them I'm in the restaurant business, they say things like, boy, that sounds like fun. And what a glamorous job that must be. Well, I love this business, but it's not always fun. And it's rarely as glamorous as it sounds. I remember one day when our computer system had crashed, and restarting it meant we would lose any future orders that we had put into this. But we had a system. Every night, the closing manager would print up every future order so we had a good record of it. But one night, he had mistakenly thrown those, all those checks away. And sure enough, the system crashed, and so we went to look for those and realized he had thrown them away. Luckily, the trash company hadn't come yet. But I'm the guy that went into the bin, went through all the trash, and found them, luckily, in the bottom safe. And so we saved a lot of headaches that way. And lastly, I think it's important for business people to have a life. Our business is probably not too different than yours. As an owner, you could spend as many hours as possible working at it. But we decided a long time ago when we started having children that we wanted to have good family lives. That's what it sounds like all of you is important to you as well. As I said, my wife and I have 5 children, and we were able to attend all their sport events, and their school activities, help out with their teams, serve in the classroom, and I've been involved in many different, as a volunteer, in many different boards and things. These are the trade-offs. We probably could have made more money had we not done it this way, but I wouldn't have wanted to miss any of the type of activities that I participated with my family with. So, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. It's been fun being here, and I hope you'll all come to Green Street for a visit someday and enjoy a great meal.
Absolutely. Bob, we want to thank you so much for all your business nuggets that we made up, all the recipes for your success, and your emotional, just talking to us with real emotion. I think it's very important for all of us to understand that everybody's business, pretty much if you stick to a business plan and a business recipe as he has, I think we can add this to our businesses as well and be a little bit more successful.
Yeah.
I want to open this up for questions for everybody. Okay, go ahead.
One more thing. Does anybody here have a birthday in February? How about January? One in January?
Yeah.
Okay, well, since you're the closest to our birthday in February,
Beautiful. Thank you, Bob.
Well, I do want to say that it was a great speech. I mean, you set the bar for all of us now, for all of our speeches and introductions and about ourselves throughout this year. You not only gave us the ups, you gave us the downs, and you gave us the in-betweens. And I think that's very important for us to all see, business-wise and also in personal, that not everything's great, and you have to get through those uneasy times with the same energy you gave when you were in the good times, if not even more. So I do appreciate that. And with that said, does anyone have any questions for him?
Yeah, I have a question. But first, you should know that there is a family